Okay, welcome to the tutorial how to make a scenario with decisive campaigns or dense offensive. We go to the simple editor and we wait for it to load. There it is. Here we're on the dashboard window. First thing we're going to do is we're going to load a map. We find a few in the map directory. And let's take a small one, Bastogne. This is okay, leave this unchanged and load map up. There we go. Here is the map. Now step 2, we have to create some regimes. For example, the Germans and Americans, the Axis and the Allies, or whatever you fancy. Add regime. We add 2 regimes. Regime 0, we're going to call them the Germans, and regime 1, we're going to call them the Americans. Now we're not going to configure everything, but we are going to set their color. The Germans we're going to give a classical shade of gray, and the Americans a classical shade of green. There we go. And we're going to also set their flags, headquarter flags, because the headquarter flag is also used to indicate the ownership of a hex on the map. And we have to set a few ownership hexes later on in this tutorial. So, flags are in the Ardennes directory, of the graphics directory. There we go to flags, and we pick the German flag for the Germans, and the American flag for the Americans. Right. So we have created the regimes. Step 3. Set the ownership of some key towns on the map. So we go to the map and we pick some key towns. Let's see, we're going to, did you see what I did there? Pick draw type, select paint type, regimes. I'm going to paint regimes on the map. First I'm going to paint some German regime on the map by clicking on the map like that. Bastogne. There's a little flag. There we go. We put some more German towns on the map. Note that we can only change the ownership of minor and major cities, not of smaller hamlets and stuff. Okay, we're also going to paint some Americans to the south, like over here on Bastogne, Cibre. I think that should be good enough over here. Okay, and drawing mode. Then we have to save the scenario, which is a good idea in itself. So test. And if we save the scenario, it also updates the map ownership. Right. Yeah, that seems good. No? Yeah, everything American, American, American. Just going to go back to the simple editor. Map. Okay. Then we have to load troop type libraries. There we go. Load troop types. Troops. Let's load some German troops. Import. Okay. And let's load some American troops. Allied troops. Okay. Right. There we go. You see, here's the German troops library with all these troop types in there, and the Allied troop type library with all the Allied troop types in there. Then we're going to load the historical unit libraries. That also depend on the troop libraries we just loaded. That's why you have to do it in that order. Model, historical model libraries, Allied models. There we go. Here we have to specify for which regime this historical model library is. So when we load the Allied models, historical models, we're going to set them to the American regimes. Import this library. There we go. There we got the American historical models, and now we're going to do the same for the Germans. Model. Make sure to select the right kind of file extension. There we go. Allied models. Oh no, I have to select German models. I'm sorry. Model lips. German models. There we go. Select the German regime. Import this library, and there we go. Okay, we now have 4 libraries. We're going to get to that later, but we're also going to load the stuff we need for the officers. Means first we're going to load an officer card library. This is a library that's used by the actual officer library, which we're going to load afterwards, and in that order. Because the officer library refers to the officer card library, so the officer card library already has to be loaded. We load some American officers. We select these American officers to be added to the American regime and to belong to the American people. Import. And then we load the German officers up. Import this library. These are going to be added to the Germans, and these belong to the Wehrmacht people. Import. Let's go. Okay, we have 6 libraries already. Let's place some units on the map. Map, right, units, we got the units, and there we are going to place some Germans over here. For example, we're going to place the 3rd Panzergrenadier headquarter over here, and a small unit belonging to it, like an Hetzer-Abteilung. This one seems properly configured. This one has a weird name, so we have to change that counter. Remove the 2nd and just keep it to 3rd Panzergrenadier. And probably put just a 3, like this, it says 3rd. Or we could keep it like this and 3 Panzergrenadier. 3 Panzer, that doesn't seem very cool. I think 3 was not bad. 3rd. Okay. And we do the same for the Americans. Add a unit model, like, I don't know, there has to be at least 1 headquarter. So I'm going to put like an infantry division headquarter there. And I'm going to also change that counter. US 28 infantry division. 28, and I'm going to add some infantry regiments to it. There's an infantry regiment, and there is another infantry regiment. What the heck, why not a tank battalion as well? Voila. In that case, let's add a little bit of infantry also to the Germans, right? Maybe they can get some Panzergrenadier regiments 1 and 2. Everybody has something. Now we have to assign some officers to these headquarters. So I'm going to set a commander for the German one. Doesn't really matter. For this exercise, and 1 for the Americans. Up. Why not Eisenhower himself? Then we have to make a save, because it's always a good idea to make a save. So let's make a save to test2. It's always good if you save to not save every time on the same file, but to rename the file to, for example, if you the first time you save it as test. The second time you save it as test version 2. And then the third time you save it as test version 3. Like this, if something gets corrupted, you can go back. It works as an undo function like this. Really, trust me, do that. And now we're going to load the VR basic library. We are over the half point already. Event library. We are past the halfway point. That's it. Now, let's load the basic events library version 42. Import. And here we're going to set the supply entry for both sides. So I'm just going to note the coordinates for the supply entries. So for the Germans it will be coordinate 2, 0, and for the Americans it's going to be 28, 40. Now we go to the tables, to VR basic library, the supply table. Here we add 2 records, one for the German regime and one for the American regime. The German regime gets supply entering on 2, 0, and the American regime on 28, 40. The percentage of supply that they're going to receive, that's what they would ideally need to receive the units, is for the Germans, let's say 35%, a bit short, and for the Americans 100%. That's it. Supply is going to arrive for both sides. Now, we also need to get some victory condition in there. For this, first we have to go to the map and put a number of victory points on the map. For example, we could put 5 victory points here, 5 victory points here. We could put 10 victory points on Bastogne, and maybe we could put 5 victory points on Neufchâteau. Like that, there's 20 victory points in total. Now, to finish this up, we have to go to VR basic library, global libvars, and configure the victory global libvars. Victory regime A is 0, slot 0, that's the Germans, and victory regime B is 1, is the Americans. Last round play, let's say the scenario takes only 6 rounds. Victory casualty divider, let's say that's every 100 power points of casualty difference gives 1 victory point. Now, victory regime A gets a major victory if it has more or equal than 16 victory points. Minor if it is more or equal than 12. And victory regime B, the Americans, they will get a major victory if the Germans have only 4 or less left, and they will get a minor victory if the Germans have only 8 or less victory points left. We could set a picture to show when the victory is shown. We don't do that for the moment. And is victory enabled? Yes. Don't forget to set that one to yes. Yeah, that seems good. Now, a few last things before we can give this this scenario a test run. We still have to set the start date. Here it asks you the question: use the normal day system for rounds. You have to say no, and then you can specify the date, for example, the 15th of January 1945, 6 o'clock in the morning, and rounds take 6 hours. I strongly advise to keep the length of the round to 6 hours, because it corresponds with the basic setup of the weather library. Okay. Set scenario description. Well, we give the name, the scenario name, like Bastogne meeting engagement or something. Designer, here you can enter your name. In my case, that's Vic, and you can give a scenario description over here, like welcome to the description, blah 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 blah. Well, this is a tutorial, right? So let's go quickly over that. And the last thing we have to do is load the VR weather library. It's an event libs. Because if we don't include the weather library, the effect will be suboptimal. Not even sure, there might not be any bugs if you do not do this. So do this. Import VR weather library. The only thing we have to do here is set, because we're going for random weather as a standard. The only thing we have to do is set the initial weather conditions. So, for example, I'm going to set just above 0 and hazy weather, and every 2 levels of height is 1 temperature level lower. Now level offset. Initial date type is morning, 0. Okay. Now I'm going to save it. It's version 3 of test. I think this should be good enough to play. Let's give it a try. Alright, we put Fog of War on, and there we go. Well, everything seems sort of right. There's the units of the Germans. There is the weather overview. It's funny, the weather type is clear. I said that's too hazy on the beginning, I think. Don't know why that happened. And here's the supply coming in at 2.0, and here's the victory condition report, which you can also check over here. So here we have a tiny scenario. It's really not well thought out, nor is it balanced, nor is it good in any way, but it shows you all the minimal steps needed to create your own scenario. So I'm sure I'm going to do some better videos than this one, but at least I walked you through everything, and I hope it was helpful. And if you have any questions, please go to the Matrix forums and ask them over there. I'll be present. Well, bye bye.